Hi, this is Justice Frangipane. I'm going to be your guide for the new features in Rebelle 5 and through the tutorial series. So this video is the one I've been most excited to make because I get to share with you everything that I've been excited about and all the different things that I've been hoping that they would add in Rebelle for a while. So there's a couple things that are on my checklist that have been added and a few surprises that I wasn't anticipating that are absolute game changers. They're so cool. And they're features that don't show up in other painting programs. So those are really cool and very unique and really, really useful for traditional artists who are trying to go digital. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into those features. So the first new thing in Rebelle 5, which is a first in the world, the only program that has this, is the new Pigments. So in digital art, all the colors are made from RGB. So red, blue, green, RGB. Okay, so red, green, blue. Yes, I get it. Okay, so that, and then we have adjustments for hue, saturation, and lightness. Now, that is not how the real world works. Our color spectrum is not just three colors in varying degrees. The real world colors that we see have a much broader spectrum. And now, for the first time ever, we have pigments. And so the pigments in Rebelle 5 use that full spectrum. So this is a combination of a bunch of different things that work together to really beautify and richen I think that's a word, to add depth. And the transition from color to color is much, much better. And it blends colors the way that we expect them to blend as if you were using real colors. So in order to demonstrate this, I'm going to have two layers, one with pigments turned on and one with pigments turned off. We're going to select the one with it turned off, zoom in here, and we're going to use three colors different than the ones that I mentioned because we're going to try and replicate more of a real world color mixing scenario. All right, so without getting into color theory, here we're going to choose magenta. And we're going to choose cyan. And we're going to choose yellow. All right, and we have a nice mixing brush. Let's blend these. You can see we're getting some nice greens. And we're getting some purples and oranges. All right, let's go ahead and jump to another layer. This one we have pigments turned on. And we're going to do the same thing. All right, we're going to start with magenta. Down here. All right, and then let's pick cyan and yellow. Blend these. All right, so now when you look at these two things, you can see there's a very big difference in where the colors are blending together, and the range that you're seeing is not quite as gray. This is fine. This is not bad. It's beautiful colors, but there's a big difference between here and the spectrum that you're seeing over here. The transition when you're going from a color. All right, so let's choose this one right here, Prussian blue. And Prussian blue, when it's really thick and stacked, it's almost black. When it's thinner here, let's go ahead and blend this out a little bit. You can see that we have this range is very different than, let's do the same thing with pigments turned off. With this dark color is almost black. And then the lighter versions are transitioning to gray. They don't travel through the blue the same way. They just do kind of a linear path just straight to gray. And in the real world, we see these colors in the different thicknesses of the paint, as well as the different transparencies, the different loading of the paint on a brush. And you can see these colors really show up here when pigments are turned on. With that comes the oil pigments mixing set, the color set. And these have the real world colors attached to them. They're not a hex color anymore. So these are the actual colors. And this is a continued work in progress. So they're not perfect, but they're the closest that any program, any drawing program or application has ever come. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So here you can see in the oil color pigment set, you've got yellow ochre, cobalt violet, cadmium green, bone blackfin, cobalt green, quinacridone magenta, and cadmium yellow. And all of these here are the actual names of the paint that you would buy in the store and use on your canvas with your real paints. So this is really cool. Actually, as a digital artist for most of my adult life, I have no familiarity with these colors, and being able to talk to a traditional artist or being a traditional artist and being able to jump right into Rebelle 5 and grabbing a color that you're already familiar with and being able to mix it and get the same colors you're used to, this is huge, huge. And Rebelle 5's only program in the world that does this. Okay, the next new feature is the NanoPixel technology. So if you have a really big canvas, then you can zoom in and you can get all of that detail, all that granularity that you want, and then go back out and that works fairly well, although not a great practice for artists to zoom in a whole bunch. Still, it's pretty neat. But when you go to print, either you're working with a massive file that is slowing everything down, introducing a lot of lag, or using with a small file, and then when you go to print, it just becomes junk. So the NanoPixel technology is really, really cool because you can zoom in and see the texture of the paper at a near microscopic level. So this means that when you have a smaller canvas, so if you had an 11 by 8 inch canvas, you can actually export that at 4 times the size with increased clarity at the canvas level. So it looks like you're printing onto canvas and it looks amazing when you're zoomed in. This blew my mind. This is something that I wasn't expecting at all. And it still is hard for me to understand what is exactly going on behind the scenes, but it's amazing. All right, let's take a look at that. When we're really zoomed in on the canvas with NanoPixel turned off, and you can see I have the visual settings panel open right here. When I turn this on, this completely changes the way that this works at this microscopic level. So that means that when you're printing, this is going to look beautiful. So let's go and actually export this. We're going to go over here to File, NanoPixel Export. And here we have the option of doing 1x, 2x, 3x, 4x. So this is going to be 400% larger. So with this canvas here, I can make this canvas is roughly 11 by 8 inches. So I can make this as large as 46 by 33 inches without increasing the size of the canvas I'm working on. This is awesome because that means I don't have to work with a giant laggy file to create something that prints beautifully. And this is for the first time being able to print something that looks this good at this large of a size. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. All right, so here you can see that canvas that we just printed, and I'm going to zoom way in, and you can see this has exactly what we wanted to have. This is coming from a 11 by 8 inch canvas, and you can zoom way in and it still looks excellent. This will look beautiful printed out. So in Rebelle 5, there are now color set improvements. So there's a whole bunch of different palettes for you to choose from. These are beautiful. They're purposed inks and colors that are built for specific things. And just like in Rebelle 4, you can create a color set, a swatch, from an image. So now you can go as high as 36 colors from an image and create a swatch based off of whatever. I like doing this with the reference image. So you can take whatever image you're referencing, and instead of sampling from it constantly, you can create a swatch or a color set from it and use that to pick your colors. And I feel like this gives me a little bit more practice doing it the way that I want to be able to do it. So not so reliant on going cheek to cheek or lips to lips for the colors. Besides having a number of beautiful color sets to work with, is that there are now specific color sets based off real world colors in here. So watercolor pigments, you have Madder Lake, Deep, Cadmium Orange, Gold Ochre, Bone Black, and these colors are actually different than the ones in the oil colors. So there's a slight difference in how these colors behave in real life, and so that's replicated here. So I love being able to look at the color names and be able to associate them with real world colors if I wanted to go back and forth between traditional and digital media. This gives me actual experience and improves my traditional artwork by understanding how these colors work and blend. So here you can also make a color set from an image, and I'm choosing 36 colors. And so let's go ahead and look at this. You can see we have all these beautiful colors based off of an image. If I wanted to have a reference image and sample back and forth, I can do that, or I can create a color set and save it. You can see it's got the name of the image here, labeling this color set. And these you can finally drag and drop, which is really cool. And if you want to mix your own colors, you can go over here to Window and open up the mixing palette. This mixing palette, you can put some colors on. So let's go ahead and put some colors on here. And let's mix these. And now I can sample from here and paint on the canvas. And this is a nice way to keep these separated and out of the way. So if you don't want to use your canvas as your mixing palette, then you can put it here on the mixing palette and call that up with the keyboard shortcut or hide it with a keyboard shortcut. Rebelle 5 also has multicolor brushes. So the multicolor brushes samples a section, and then you can paint from that. So really this is kind of like an extension of the dirty brush. The dirty brush gives us that more realistic, more natural, expected color blending experience when you're using a brush that has pigment already on it. So this is an extension of that. You can, when you are sampling a color, you'll sample that section and then paint with it. It's really cool. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so we have multicolor brush turned on and dirty brush. We're going to turn off dirty brush, and we're going to sample yellow and blue, and we're going to sample magenta and yellow, and orange and cyan. It's not quite cyan. All right, and let's turn on dirty brush. Dirty brush is going to apply some blending, and these have separated out, so there's some differences between those. I'll go into that in more detail on the specific tutorial on these. So here, there's a new volume presets panel, which means if you have certain sizes, certain levels of loading or oiliness or pressure, you can have those set up here and just quickly jump back and forth between those sizes instead of adjusting it individually in each brush. Watercolors have a brand new property to them, the granulation. So when watercolor dries, there's this granulation that appears on the page where the water and the color, the pigments there are going up and down inside of the canvas textures, the paper textures. You're getting this texture that forms on the dried watercolor. This is now part of the watercolor brushes behavior inside of Rebelle 5, and you can turn that on or off, which is really cool, and you can adjust the strength and the texture properties and the texture image as well. All right, so we're going to add some watercolor here, and we're going to add a little bit of water. Now when this dries, you're going to see the texture forming, the granulation forming in the dried areas. All right, so we should start seeing it right here, and you can see that granulation happening, that drying watercolor. You can choose different textures, the strength, the density, and you can turn that feature on and off. With that, you can adjust how fast diffusion works inside of Rebelle 5, which is really cool. And this is dependent on your computer, not dependent on Rebelle. So if you want to interact with the layer while it's diffusing, then this allows you to slow it down and work with the diffusion, or speed it up and have it finish sooner rather than having to wait for it. The brush creator now has curves, and really powerful curves. So you can adjust everything about the way the brush behaves. So here you can see in the brush creator, we have individual curves for size and opacity, and down here, rotation. For pen tilt, there's the shape borders, which I'll go into more detail in the brush creator series. So check that out. This is really cool. And you can adjust tip tilt, paper texture, strength. There's a whole bunch of different areas where the curves added to the brush creator add a ton of power. One of the most exciting parts is right here, paint mode. You can now choose how these curves apply to each. So here you have paint and you have mix curves. So you can decide when one is triggered and when one is not. And here the same thing for paint and blend and for mix. So if you want to customize your brush to do exactly what you want, so you can blend with light pressure, or do a little tiny line with light pressure, and then right here have it adjust so pen pressure is exactly doing what you want and pen tilt is doing what you want. You have so many more options. This was a very heavily requested feature, so I think you guys are going to be very excited about this. One of the things that was lacking in Rebelle 4 that I really wanted is time lapse. I wanted to be able to record my work without having to record my entire screen and create a whole video. All right, so you can see here, we'll go into Window and record time lapse. Time lapse has a ton of features. So here you can see capture interval, so I can adjust this up and down. This is currently set at 1 second. Where it's set, frame rate for the video, I can choose the codec, H.264 or H.265, the quality, and then these frame rates are great. You can see it can go all the way up to 2160p, and the video records in the background nice and smoothly, exports. So finally, Rebelle has time-lapse recording, which I'm really excited about. Woo! Thank you, guys. There's now colored papers. So one of the greatest things about the new canvas colors is that these are very, very high resolution scans of actual canvases and different types of paper. So you're not just getting gray or blue, you're getting all of this little detail that shows up on a canvas that you would miss if we were just simply coloring the entire page. So there's a lot of color in this actual colored paper. And there's a lot to choose from, so go in there and explore it. The different papers that they have so much personality to them, and these textures actually affect the way that the watercolor moves across the paper, so they'll hit the bumps in the canvas. This is awesome. You can now have multiple reference images. So in the past you were limited to one, now we can open up. So here I can turn them all on or all off. If I want to color pick, I can pick colors directly from the images. If I want to turn them black and white, I can turn them black and white, and I can flip both horizontal and vertically. I'm really happy about being able to pick colors and turn them grayscale. It's a great addition, and being able to flip them back and forth easily. This is really cool, being able to turn them all on and off quickly, and being able to bring those up with the keyboard shortcut is something that I'm really happy about. The layers panel has some new options. So there is wet all visible. So let's go ahead and turn this on. Let's dry the layer and then choose wet all visible. You see, all it's doing is just wetting everything that's already on the canvas. If there's not something on the canvas, it's not wetting the entire canvas. So here you can see wet the layer, and the whole layer is wet. Let's go back to dry. There's automatic selection, so if I control click right here, it's going to make a selection of all of the visible pixels. This is really great if you want to modify just what's currently there. Okay, now something that I'm really excited about is the new tablet mode. This was made very much with me in mind. So the new tablet mode is phenomenal. It's a lot better than I was expecting. And we had talked about a handful of different solutions for if you're using Tablet Pro with the artist pad and you're using the touchscreen and the tablet at the same time, how do we make this work better? What's the most beautiful implementation, the most effective implementation of this type of workflow? So I'll demonstrate that for you. So here you can see the artist pad on the left, and I'm going to switch to tablet mode. Tablet mode is going to give me the full screen, so I have this giant canvas to interact with. And now if I want a single panel up, I can press the button for that panel. And this will open up, and I can have it open underneath the pen tip, I can have it open in the center of the screen, or I can have it open in the last position that I placed it. So this is really, really awesome. It'll close the other panel in order to open the one. That's a setting you can choose. And instead of having to hide everything, I can show everything at the same time and hide everything at the same time. And it's awesome. It works so well. With Rebelle 4.1 and later, they now support true simultaneous pen and touch, which means that I can put my pen on the screen, I can press the button, and I can adjust the size of the brush. I can pan the canvas, zoom in. Look at that. So nice. And I can toggle back and forth between the different modes while I'm using the pen. So real-time adjusting. So here, if I put a couple different colors, and then let's go ahead and we're going to blend them. So now I can just hold down for, and this is going to allow me to blend. You can see that the brush icon is now blue. When I let it go, it goes back to what I had it before. And this toggles on just while I'm using it, and then back off. Really powerful. Color picking, same thing. I can adjust all these things in real time while using the stylus. Tilt is supported. Tablet mode is awesome, you guys. If you're using a touchscreen with a stylus, then check this out and check out the artist pad from Tablet Pro. All right, the last thing we're going to talk about in this video, and there's a whole lot more to talk about coming up, so if you haven't subscribed yet to this channel, please subscribe. The last thing we're going to talk about is the new Photoshop plugin. If you are going back and forth, you're creating 3D text, or you're doing something in Photoshop and you want to have that available in Rebelle without having to open, save, export, open, save, or open, refresh, and then make those adjustments, you can keep the file open in both at the same time, and it will update back and forth in between the two programs. All right, so cool. I'm so happy you guys are checking out Rebelle 5. If you haven't picked it up yet, go to the Rebelle website and check it out. You guys won't be disappointed. Again, if you haven't subscribed to this channel and you are a digital artist, get on it. Click that button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification icon so you can be made aware anytime that we have new updates and more information on how to use your favorite digital art program.